All right. It's just me today, but don't worry. JP will be back in studio, and we're going to discuss episode 5 of season 9 with him tomorrow morning. He says that he called me so early, man. He called me at like 5:30 this morning. I was, getting ready for work and, getting ready to leave for work, and told me that he might have eaten something bad, whatever, but that he was happy to send me a picture of a trash can full of vomit if I didn't believe him, to which I said, I'm just going to take your word. Feel better. We'll talk about it on Tuesday. Keep in mind also, next week's podcast will not be out until Tuesday because I will actually be out of town this weekend and I won't be back until Monday. But we didn't want to leave you completely high and dry, so JP was like, man, just go on and do like a, solo podcast. Do a part 1 and then we'll do a part 2 tomorrow when I'm not throwing up all over the place. So here is that part 1. What man, this episode just, I actually didn't watch it downstairs. Like I had said in previous podcasts, I was going to watch, in my man cave. So if I wanted to get emotional, I could do it in the privacy of my own manliness. But I actually watched it upstairs with my girlfriend, and what an episode. Now, I could see people picking this thing apart. Don't get me wrong. Plenty of people. When a show goes on this long, you're never going to make everybody happy. I mean, there are going to be people that fall off, people that just aren't, nothing they can do is going to save face. Me, however, I love this episode. Like, yes, the things in this episode, I'm not going to say they've never been done before, or they're not, some of the elements weren't a little cliche, but with that said, I still give this like a 5 out of 5, man. I don't base things off of a list of, like a checklist. When I tell you how I feel about an episode, I'm going by what I felt at the end of the episode. And if I was genuinely bored or just disconcerted, I will tell you it wasn't, which luckily I haven't told you that in a while because this season's been excellent. But, last season or 2 or 3, there were times where I'd be like, just wasn't feeling this episode. This one, oh my goodness. I just don't even know where to start. I'm going to try to go a little bit in order. I used to take notes, but the problem with taking notes is that I end up missing things on the episode while I'm taking these notes. And I have a very bad short-term memory, so if I wait till a commercial break to write these things down, I'll forget half of what I wanted to write down. So I just have to keep, so I'm excited that JP is not here today because that gives me, I can go home today, watch the episode again, and be even more knowledgeable when we do our podcast tomorrow. But so many things to go over. Number 1, call me crazy. Call me crazy. I mean, like I said, the hero sacrificing himself, that's nothing new. But with Rick Grimes, it was straight up freaking beautiful. So in my opinion, and this is just me, if they would have ended the episode, if we wouldn't have got that little tidbit after the episode, finding Jadis in the helicopter coming and getting Rick and all of that, I still would have been okay. If he would have shot that dynamite, blown up, and that was the end of Rick Grimes, I would have been okay with it. I thought it was beautifully done. This episode may be my favorite episode of the show ever. And that's saying a lot because there are several other episodes that I love to, I can watch anytime. Seen them 100 times, can continue to watch them. But I mean, this one was, man, I mean, I think and I give it to, Scott Gimple was in charge of this. And I give him props. He catches a lot of flack from a lot of Walking Dead fans, myself sometimes included. I thought this send-off to Rick was absolutely beautiful. Now, however you feel about, the whole Jadis thing, whatever. I mean, that's going to be its own Walking Dead AMC movies. But here in the Walking Dead show universe, Rick Grimes, he's no more. And that's not to say that he won't eventually find his way back to the show. I'm not 100% convinced that, in a couple of seasons, they won't find some way to bring him back. Unless they're going to kill him off in his movies, which maybe they will. He's been doing it for a while. But and they can actually film like in London or closer to London is what I was reading this morning. And that's one reason why he was, cool with leaving. He wanted to leave the show, but was perfectly cool with continuing to be Rick Grimes. Because, I was watching something last night where they were talking about, he loves being Rick Grimes. It's not like he got tired of playing the role or that he doesn't like being Rick Grimes anymore. He just wants, his kids, they're not as portable when they get older. They get friends and just moving them around is not easy on them. So. But, man, what an episode. So let's go back to the beginning. It was funny when Rick was laying on that rebar and he threw the belt over. I was telling my girlfriend, I was like, in my experience, rebar bends a lot. Like, I don't know if it would be able to support the weight of a grown man pulling, with the resistance of the other piece holding him in, too. But then when it zoomed out, the rebar was bending. So I was like, okay, well, you know what, though? I've never been impaled and had to pull myself off of rebar that way, so who knows how rebar would react in that situation. But this whole episode, I was on the edge of my seat. I'm like, Rick, get up. Go. Rick, stop. Just don't fall asleep on the horse, Rick. Wake up. It was, and then some of these flashbacks and not flashbacks, but like conversations with the dead were absolutely amazing, man. I mean, I was really surprised, too, to see Sasha, which we'll get back to that, but it was really cool to see Sasha in that pile of bodies. I knew we were going to see Shane. I knew we were going to see Herschel. Didn't know who else we were going to see. I understand if there's like bad blood, but I really think the only mistake they made was not having Carl be in one of these. I could deal without Lori. You know what I mean? I could deal without other characters, but I really feel like Carl should have been like who Rick saw. But I was happy to see Sasha, but I feel like Carl should have been in there somewhere. Maybe even I'm glad Sasha was there. Maybe give her another part of that. But Carl could be like the wisdom or the driving force. I don't know. But aside from not seeing Carl, I thought that those scenes were amazing. I love Rick waking up in the hospital bed and being like, it's time to wake up, asshole, to himself. And, the conversation with Herschel was beautiful, man. I mean, that was exactly how we all like to imagine and see Herschel in our minds when we remember his character. It was just, and then, of course, with Scott Wilson passing away not too long ago in real life, it made it that much, man, like I won't get emotional. I'm not an emotional person, but man, that scene was just beautiful. It was probably, no kidding, my favorite scene of I'm not counting the Michonne and all of that because they weren't dead. I'm talking about conversations with dead people, which there were 3, right? 3? I thought that the Herschel one was awesome, but the Shane one was great too, man. Like, I love that we get like some closure between the Rick and Shane thing. Rick is basically like, man, I'm sorry for what I did to you. The whole stabbing you in the heart thing, whatever you did. I would have been like, you did try to kill me first, though. But it was really great to see John Bernthal back on set and just that dynamic that we got with Rick and Shane from season 1. That was so cool because, we haven't seen that in a long time. And especially seeing, and I love the things that Shane said. I love that Shane's like, I like to take credit. I knew you had this in you all along. And I just wanted to see it, and I like to take some credit for it. And it's a good point, man. Shane really was kind of what tipped Rick from officer friendly to, being, and it was other situations as well. But I think Shane was the start of that. Shane really pushed Rick to have to be a hard ass and to have to make tough calls and to do things that he didn't want to do in order to keep people alive. And then it just kind of spiraled from there. But that was a really, and then it was, oh man, it's so much to cover. It's why I need JP. And I've never done a solo podcast, so forgive me. I don't really know how to do this. But I thought that was amazing. And then we go, Rick gets to the house and like that, which actually I think Rick got to the house before. That's right. Rick got to the house. He sat down. He started dreaming. That's when we saw Shane. And then the zombie was in his face when Shane was yelling at him. I just kept thinking that Rick was going to get bit or something. And I was so glad that he didn't. But so we go from that. And then let's step away from Rick for a second because there's a lot of Rick left to talk about. Let's talk about my girl Michonne and my other girl Maggie. This face-to-face confrontation they had. Amazing scene by both actresses. I thought they did wonderful. I'm a big fan of both. Denai Guerrero, you've heard me say a million times if you listen to this podcast, I think that she is one of the most talented actors on that entire set or in the Walking Dead franchise, period, between both shows. Denai Guerrero is just amazing. I don't even know how to explain how much I love Michonne. So to see her and Maggie, and when Michonne's like, just step back. I'm like, Maggie, please just step back. Maggie's a badass, but you're not, you can't take Michonne. It's not many people on there that can take Michonne. So but I love the scene, man. Maggie had some good points, and Michonne, I guess, realized that this was a choice that Maggie was going to have to make. And, then we move from that scene to the scene with Maggie and Negan, which was awesome because I believe that was from issue 174. Because I told my girlfriend while that was happening, I was like, man, they're flashing forward to the comics more than they ever have. I mean, usually, they're a couple years behind the comics, but I mean, that was something that happened. I mean, like we have a podcast about that issue. I think it was 174, somewhere in that range. Within the last year or so, you can actually find it. It's here on the channel talking about Negan and Maggie's encounter. It took them a long time to come face to face, but it was really cool to see them move it up. And I thought that Jeffrey Dean Morgan's performance there was just, I got goosebumps, man. I thought it was amazing. I love seeing this human side of Negan. I mean, you got to think, Negan was out of his cell. He could have, if he wanted to try something, man, he could have easily have done it then. And he didn't. I think that he was very true to his word. And it's going to be interesting to see how he moves forward. And we'll be talking about Negan here in just a little bit because we also have to talk about scenes from the next 3 episodes that they showed. And wow, does it look like some really cool stuff is on the horizon for this show. And I will say this, seeing those scenes from the next 3 episodes really does make me hopeful about this show without Rick. I was one of the ones that was like, I just don't think the show could go on without Rick. The show is Rick Grimes. And Andrew Lincoln last night and Scott Gimple, other people were like, Rick is not the Walking Dead. It's like, no, Rick is the Walking Dead. We started with Rick. Everything in this show, we're mainly following Rick. There are other characters that we know and we love, but Rick is the lead of the show. We started with him. I mean, it just, it's just how it goes. But I will say I am a little bit more hopeful of The Walking Dead post Rick Grimes after seeing the scenes. It looks like they've put together something really special, and I'm not giving up on it. I love this show, and I will ride it out as long as I have to. Like I said, I'm sure there's an episode here or there I'm going to be telling you I didn't enjoy, but this wasn't one of them. So then we get to the next flashback, the Herschel. I keep saying flashback. The Herschel conversation, because Rick kept falling. I was like, stop falling asleep on this horse, please. And then we have that Rick and Herschel conversation, which was, it gave me goosebumps. I believe if my girlfriend wasn't beside me bawling her eyes out, I probably, and I'm not a big crier. I'm not going to say I never cry, but I don't cry often. It's just not me. But that almost... and like I said, it's a combination of things. Herschel has always been probably, I think it's safe to say Herschel's been the majority of fans' favorite moral compass on the show, right? I like Dale, all right, but Herschel was leaps and bounds better of a moral compass than Dale. He had some real character growth. I loved Herschel. I almost quit watching the show when he died, just in the heat of the moment, because I was so angry that they killed Herschel, but... another great episode looking back on it now. But when it happened, man, I was like, screw this show. I'm so done. But and then knowing Scott Wilson has passed away recently, I can't imagine. I was telling a friend or somebody a while back, like, I can't imagine what that was, like this was talking before I had seen it. But I was like, I know that Herschel's going to have some flash, like, scene with Rick in the finale, man. In the episode 5, I can't imagine what that's going to be like for his family. I wouldn't blame him for not watching it yet. Some people move on fast, or some people it would comfort, but just imagine after just losing someone to watch a scene with them being, that's probably how his family wants to remember him. Because a lot of people have said that he was, a lot like Herschel. He was a really nice guy. A lot of the people on the set really looked up to him, got advice from him. He was a part of him was Herschel. And so I can't imagine what that would be like to watch. And then after actually seeing it last night, I'm like, yeah, if that was my dad, granddad, uncle, whatever, someone in his family would be related to him and saw that, I'd probably lose it. That was absolutely beautiful. And I actually read an article where Scott Wilson had said watching that scene with him and Rick after it was done moved him to tears. I thought it was beautiful, man. I mean, I cannot wait to watch it again. Like, probably alone. Well, because my girlfriend doesn't get off until like an hour or two after I get home, so I can go home and watch it and ugly cry and not be judged. But, oh, it was beautiful. And then, of course, Rick keeps falling asleep on that damn horse. I think that horse, I just at the end was like, screw this horse, man. You know, and then, of course, it bucks him again. And then the horse just runs off and is like, nope, I'm done, man. I'm done. And it was so intense with Rick in the camp and just watching the walkers destroy it. And then, you know, it getting closer. I'm like, come on, Rick. Like, you know that's not the way it's going to go down, but it still doesn't stop you from being on the edge of your seat. Like, get up, Rick. I believe I said, get up, Rick. Probably like 50 times last night. I'm like, get up, Rick, get up, Rick, get up, Rick. Come on, go, Rick, go. But when he shot, remember when he shot that walker? Because he was in the camp and he shot two of them, I believe, and then he shot the girl walker when it got close and it fell on him. I really thought like he had hit it in the neck or something and like it was going to bite him. I thought because it laid right on him. I was like, oh, God, it's going to chomp down on him. And now we're going to know it's an inevitable end now. Because I'm not if somebody gets bit, they're dying. With Carl, we had all these theories and thoughts on how he could survive the bite. But we know on this show, once you get bit, it's over, dude, unless you can chop it off. And I was just like, oh, she's going to bite Rick. And that's just going to like reassert to us that Rick is dying. But luckily she didn't. She was dead. But just so many. I don't know. I've never done this before, so I'm sorry if this sucks. Just please stick with me. JP will be back tomorrow. But then when we get Rick at the bridge, you know, I thought that was like just imagining everybody coming together. His talk with Michonne, oh my gosh! Like I wanted that to be real. Like I knew, and I had heard other YouTubers say that they thought that that was a hallucination or whatnot, like from the trailer, and I thought it was too. But when they were having their talk, I was like, please don't let it be. If Rick is gonna die, that is an amazing talk from Michonne. Like, you know, just let the talk continue and be real. But of course, it was a hallucination. But and he didn't get to have that talk with Michonne. Poor Michonne. The only thing she saw was Rick on the hill. I got goosebumps right now thinking of the scene where everyone does show up. You know, Daryl's arrow, kind of a callback, I feel, to which Daryl saved a lot of people from walkers last minute with an arrow to the head. But it reminds me of season 3 when the governor attacks the prison, I believe, for the first time, and they drive the truck through the prison gates and they drop out the walkers, you know, and Rick's out of bullets and he's chunking zombies in the face with his python, and he's got a couple of them against the wall, and remember one of them is right up on him, and then all of a sudden an arrow just goes right to the back of the head, and Daryl and Merle show back up. Like that's kind of, it was a lot of things that reminded me of earlier episodes, and that was one of them. So yeah, you know what? I'm gonna bring back some music under my talking because I just feel like I feel naked by myself and nothing under me. But that didn't sound right. That's what she said. That didn't work. Move on. Okay. So yeah, and then you know when Rick's on the bridge, that man, just the look in his eye when it kind of, I don't know why, but it kind of reminded me of, I know they were somewhat killing themselves for different reasons. And spoiler alert, if you hadn't watched Sons of Anarchy, I'm going to give a big spoiler here. So give yourself like 20 seconds and come back. But the show's been off for like, 3 or 4, 5 years now. So, but it reminded me a little bit of like Jax's. I don't know. There just was like this peace in Rick's eyes, just like with Jax when he goes to off himself. And like I said, though, they were, somewhat killing themselves for different reasons. I don't know. There was just like this peace in Rick's eye, and it just, oh man. And then just when he's like, I found him, oh my God. Goosebumps. Can't even talk much about that anymore because that's my boy. When he did that, man, I was like, oh God, don't do it. Oh, what movie was that where he's like, it's The Rock, Jumanji, where he's like, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. I felt like that was me the majority of this episode last night. Just deep breaths and don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I knew though, like when he blew up, I thought that was it. I mean, just the look from Daryl, the reaction from Michonne. Oh man, it made it that much rougher. Just to see, I don't know, man. Daryl's crying and Michonne's, freaking out trying to get to Rick and just devastated, and everybody there is just, that's their man. Even when they disagree with him, that's Rick Grimes, and he so from what it looks like to them, of course they're going to think he's dead, and I don't know if they're going to think he's missing or they're looking for his body or how they're going to go forward with that, like what their thought is going to be, that Rick's dead or Rick's missing or whatever. But just, I'm so ready for next week already, even though we're going to have a time jump, and we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes because, man, things have changed in that time jump. But, of course, when Jadis comes, I'm interested to see how this whole A and B thing plays out. Like, I need some answers on this because she said that Rick was a B and he was hurt and that she never had an A, whatever. So, if you know more about that, please let me know because I didn't hear all of that. And I'm going to go home and rewatch the episode. Maybe I'll have more to say about it tomorrow on our podcast with JP. But I didn't quite get that. She's like, I never had an A, I've got a B, but he's injured. And I wasn't quite sure exactly what to make of that. But, then Rick's in the helicopter. And one thing, too, man, like there's so much to cover. And I don't know that I'll get to cover it all. Going back to when Rick was in the hospital, I loved the way it was those crows in the air, which kind of, the birds. I don't know if they were crows or not. But these birds were in the air kind of circling, doing this, really mesmerizing thing, kind of reminiscent of like the the opening credits that we have now where the birds fly out the tree when that music hits. Kind of reminded me of that. But then I love how they turn into helicopters. For me, that was like straight up foreshadowing. I knew that, we know that there's, Rick seen that helicopter a season or so ago. And then we also know that he saw a helicopter back in the beginning. But I felt like that was foreshadowing like his exit, obviously, like, it was a great callback to past things, but it was also a great kind of foreshadowing of what was going to happen at the end of the episode. And when the bridge blew up and we saw Jadis, as soon as Jadis walked out, I was like, okay, Rick is alive somewhere. So where is he? And then the camera pans over and you see him laying there on the riverbank and just moving a little bit. And I was like, yes. I just clapped my hands. I was like, I told you my boy wasn't dead. I told you. And of course, my girlfriend's just over there, like, still sobbing, just like, what? But then I like that. Okay, I like that Jadis saved Rick. More, it seemed more so to save him than to save herself. She was like, I'm saving someone who saved me. And I like that because I thought that she was just going to use Rick as a way to get out. It was honestly going to, if that did happen, I was thinking it was honestly going to be even more of like a sinister tone. Like she basically is just taking Rick to save her own neck. And that's it. But actually she's not, she's saving Rick because she feels like he saved her. He gave her a chance to be part of his group. He didn't kill her when he's had the chance. I mean, they've got a rough history. So, the fact that Rick Grimes has had these interactions with you and you're still alive, I guess she just felt like, I need to do something to pay him back. But, and I'm interested to see because we all were thinking that there was something very sinister going on with these helicopter people. But I don't know. I mean, they were saving Rick's life. They had him hooked up to an IV and patched up and everything. And I don't know. We were thinking maybe like I don't know. I'm very interested. And of course, if you watched, I did watch The Talking Dead, which you had to watch it, last night, man. I mean, it was just Rick Grimes' exit from the show, which I know Andrew Lincoln lives in Britain, but I was a little disappointed. I know they had an exclusive interview, and Yvette Cole Brown did a great job with her interview. I always enjoy seeing her on The Talking Dead. But I feel like Andy should have been there. I mean, like, this is... I don't know, man. I was kind of disappointed that he wasn't there on set. Now, I'm very glad we had that interview. Wonderful interview. Definitely needed that. So, I mean, it's kind of like he was there, but I just expected him to be there. This is your exit episode from the show that you, helped launch. So I was kind of bummed out that Rick wasn't there. But again, that interview was great. So it's kind of like he was there. But what Scott Gimple was talking about, these AMC feature-length movies with Rick Grimes. I'm very excited about that. And if this was any other character, I would be like, other than like Michonne, but any other character, I would be like, I don't know if I can find them interesting enough to enjoy them without their normal settings. But with Rick, I don't know. So many, and we're going to have conversations about this throughout the next year. That I can promise you, because they said they plan to start production in 2019, which we're very close to. And then I don't have a clue when the movies are going to be released. I'm really hoping, they're able to. I don't know. I don't want them to rush and it be terrible, but I don't want to wait forever to see it. I don't want to lose interest in it. I really feel like they should have almost started production on it right away, but I get that Andrew Lincoln, that's the whole reason he left, to spend more time with his kids. But I'm interested to see, because, we know that if Rick, I wonder if he's going to have like some kind of amnesia from the concussion. Perhaps he won't be Rick Grimes anymore. Maybe he'll have a new name. Which I would imagine Jadis would be able to tell them his name, but I don't know. Like, is he going to have amnesia and be somebody else? Because we know if Rick Grimes wakes up and he knows he's Rick Grimes, all of that, he's going to try to get back to his family. He's going to try to get back to Michonne. He's going to, he's got a lot to get back to. So, he's got to get back to Judith, who's a little badass right now. We'll talk about that here in a second too. But, he's got a lot to get back to. And I love the theme of this episode, because I think I had said that earlier this year. At some point I said that I thought that the way that I thought he was going to die, though. Don't get me wrong. This was not anticipating Rick surviving. But I think I had said something to the effect of like, I feel like the reason why Shane, and you'll see everybody there, I thought Shane was going to be antagonizing him, basically, like, you couldn't keep them alive, Carl's dead, Lori's dead, now you're about to die. But one thing I did get right that I was happy to see, it lied in the conversation with like Herschel and primarily Sasha, when she was talking about how, living or die, look at what he had built. That's what I thought the theme was going to be. Rick was going to go out, and the episode was kind of going to be like reassuring to him, like as he dies, that he helped kickstart civilization. Like, yes, he died. He doesn't get to see it play out, but look at what he put into motion. Look at what the people that came before him put into motion and gave their lives for. And so that was, I wasn't right on much, but I was kind of sort of, that's kind of what I was thinking, which wasn't really a hard call, I guess. It's not really it's been done before. But, I loved it though, man. Like I said, I'm sure people are going to pick this episode apart, and that is perfectly fine, man. Some people really enjoy like just critiquing shows and things like that, and I'm giving you my reaction based off of my emotion when the episode ended, and that's what I do with movies like Avengers: Infinity War. When that came out, I didn't know. I loved it, and I left the theater just ready to go get bitten by a radioactive spider or something to get superpowers. I loved it, and I remember telling a friend, I didn't want to spoil it, but he's just like, don't spoil it, but tell me. I'm like, dude, based off of how I felt when I left that theater, it's amazing. Now, and I'm luckily, within the next few days, reviews were coming out and people were praising it, saying it was amazing. But I was like, knowing my luck, most of the things that I love, people hate, and vice versa. But I loved it, and I'm doing the same thing with The Walking Dead. Like, I could hold it up to a sheet and be like, okay, has this been done before? Yes, but at the end of the episode, I wanted to. Yeah, there were just points that made me want to, which I did stand up when they showed him on the riverbank, and I was like, yes, I knew he was alive. But there were parts that made me want to cry. There were parts that made me, I was like yelling at the TV, and just by the end, I was satisfied. I was satisfied with it. If he would have died, I would have hated, a piece of rebar to be what kickstarted this thing. But that's, I was okay. Like I said, if he would have blown the bridge up and that would have been the end of Rick Grimes, I would have been okay with it. As bad as it would have sucked, I would have been okay with it. But alas, more Rick Grimes to come. But so that's all I'll really touch on the Rick Grimes thing right now until I get JP in studio with me tomorrow, and then I'm sure there'll be, and I'll have watched it a second time, so we could, maybe there'll be some things that I missed this go around. But yeah, so moving on to the scenes after Rick left, now my only question is, how did Judith get that python? I hope that, as silly as it is, and that's just attention to detail, so they might not. But I do truly hope that, they show like a scene of the aftermath of the explosion, and like they find Daryl or, Michonne as they pick up Rick's gun and bring it back. Otherwise, I'm going to be like, man, how did she get that gun? I mean, Rick shot it, blew up. But what a badass. And it definitely looks like we're going to see Judith taking Carl's role. And it's got me starting to wonder, because we obviously know there was some animosity when they wrote Carl off, because they said he apparently had just signed on for like another couple of years, or at least another year, or something to that effect, and that his father was infuriated, that Scott Gimple did this. But maybe what it was, because I remember saying, several times that it's like he's growing up too fast. You know what I mean? By season 11 or 12, he's going to look like he's Rick's age when Rick started almost, which I know not really, but you get what I'm saying. He's growing up too fast for the role of Carl Grimes. And I'm starting to wonder, was that why they killed him off? Because they were like, look, this dude's, in the comics, he's still a kid. And at the point that I don't know. There's much discussion to be had there, because at the point in which they are in the comics, when the whole Whisperer thing happens, Carl's having romantic relations with a young lady. So he was a little bit older in that. But I wonder if they wanted to kind of restart the Carl role with Judith, with someone younger, naive, but badass. And it's going to be interesting. It's really cool because, again, comic spoilers. Sorry, but, like 20 seconds, come back. But, Judith is not alive at this point. Judith didn't make it very long in the comics. And Carl is still very much alive and, and kicking. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they do this. But I love that scene, man. When you heard, come on, this way or whatever. I definitely thought Jesus was going to be the one to save them at first, but I was perfectly fine with it being Judith. I thought that was really, really cool. But so, looking ahead at we got to see in The Talking Dead, we got to see a scene from next week's Walking Dead, and Michonne's got an awesome new hairdo, keeping it fresh. Carol has a lot more hair. Looks like she's straight off the set of, I thought it was Orlando Bloom there for a second, like straight off the set of Lord of the Rings. It looks interesting. What we see in that scene is we see Magna and all of these new characters being brought, and Michonne does not look happy, man. Like Michonne, I'm wondering if they're going to go like she's bitter after. It's been years, and the love of her life is gone. I wonder if Michonne's character is going to change, because she did not seem happy that these new people were being brought in. Now, we don't know exactly, how they're going to. You've got the comics, but the show, tends to deviate often. I don't, maybe they break into Alexandria, and that's why Michonne was so unhappy when she sees them. I don't know. Because I do know, well, I'm not going to spoil anything from the comics. It's so easy to do that, but I don't want to do that. But I know that there's some tension between them in the beginning of the comics, and it might go the same route, but I don't know. But Michonne did not look happy to be seeing these people. And then we've got young Judith, who's I'm digging it kind of reminds me of the Old Man Carl pictures that I had saw back when the theory was that this show was Carl's memories, like him retelling his apocalypse story, and like they've had pictures people have drawn of Carl with the hat and the sword and the gun. Actually, a listener sent us a picture of that on the Facebook. If I can find it, I'll try to have. You might be seeing it on screen right now. But so it kind of reminded me of that. Just instead of an old man Carl, it was a little girl Judith. But really badass when she picks up the hat. She's like, Judith Grimes. I was just ready for her to be like, bitch, right afterwards. Would have completely completed it. But yeah, so, oh man, I'm so excited for the introduction of the Whisperers. I I think that's going to be something fresh and new to really, because, I mean, this is unlike any villain you've seen before. I mean, this is not, Negan, the governor, which is not just a group of people per se. I mean, these are a weird group of people that are into some really, really weird-ish. And it's just going to be, I think it's going to be a nice, breath of fresh air in a way for the show. A totally new villain, totally new stakes. And I am pumped for it. I'm loving it, man. I've said it from the first episode of this season. I am totally digging the way that this show is going. And I thank you so much for listening to me ramble for like 35, 36 minutes. I've never done this by myself, so I'm sure it sucked, or I, didn't cover everything or something. But nonetheless, I had to talk about it with somebody, right? Don't forget, if you have a question for us that you want in our mail call video, just to put it in the comments section with hashtag mail call. And I can't promise we'll get to every single one, because last time we expected to have like a couple and we ended up getting a ton of them. So we did miss a few. And if we ever do miss your comment, just leave it again. And I promise you we will get to it. But leave that in this video, any video that we've left. The Walking Dead Telltale Game videos are coming. I promise you, give it a week or two. We will have those. And once we start, we're going to continue. That will be a consistent little series, like mini series we're going to put here on the channel, as JP and myself playing that game. We're going to start out of order. We're going to start with the Michonne one, and then we're going to go to season 1 with like Clementine and Lee, and then season 2 and 3, and I think 4 is the newest and last one, I believe, right? I don't know. We'll find out. I will say, too, in the scenes from the upcoming episodes, we finally get to see Jesus be a badass. Like, yes, we've seen a little bit of badass Jesus. When he first showed up, we saw him, like Kung Fu Rick a little bit. And then when he and Morgan had his fight, that was excellent. Like that was one of my favorite moments from the show. I love that fight. Like, we finally see, okay. And then we've seen Jesus like kick and pin a zombie to the wall last season. And we've seen him do a few kicks, but like in the trailer, it showed like him wearing the armor and everything that he wears in the comics, and he's like doing this flying kick sword slice thing. I'm so excited. Jesus is one of my favorites in the comics. Actually, he might be my absolute favorite in the comic. So I want to see him get a little bit more badassness on the screen, because that's why we love Jesus so much in the comics. Is he's just like this badass dude that looks like Jesus. So I'm hoping we do see a lot more of that as we go. With Rick out of the picture, they definitely have the time now and the ability to be able to write more for other characters. So I hope they take advantage of that and really bring it out, because you're going to need strong characters to carry this show. We have some in there, but we're going to need really strong characters to carry it with Rick Grimes no longer in the picture. So, yeah, we'll have a podcast out tomorrow, a part 2, if you will, with JP. If he's still throwing up, well, I'm just going to drag him in here, and he just might be throwing up between sentences, but we'll have him in studio to discuss and see what he thought about the episode. And yeah, more content coming this week. We've got a lot to talk about, and I thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'm sorry if I bored you, or if, I don't know. Never done this alone before. Also, we might be, it's a little early, so it might not happen, so I don't want to give away too much, but we might be doing a collaboration with another channel that I believe is quite a bit bigger than ours on YouTube. It's a Walking Dead channel. So we might be doing something with this person or persons in the future. We're in talks now, and who knows? Could be some collaborations on the way. We love you so much, and thank you so much for listening. I'm Justin, and this is the Podcasting Dead.